Good evening, workshop family. How are you? Toolman Tim here. Welcome back to the workshop where we create community, find freedom, promote preparedness, and share success. So it is March the 17th, 2022, and this is episode 83 of the workshop podcast. We've been doing this 83 times in some form or another. It's getting kind of exciting. We're getting close to that century mark. Tonight, I am going to share with you 40 tips, tricks, hacks, whatever you want to call it, about storage and organization in your garage, in your sheds, wherever it is you keep your shit. Me too. I always need to be reminded of these things. So before we do that, let's dive into the announcements. Okay, so first thing, I've got one for you here. What I would really appreciate, if you can, is to leave a review on whatever podcast catcher that you happen to use. The biggest one, of course, is Apple Podcasts. So if you need, if you're on the app, the easiest way, go on the app, scroll all the way to the bottom, go down to ratings and reviews. And when you see that, just click on it and leave one. That would be absolutely great. Of course, I'd prefer a 5-star review, but whatever, be honest and leave whatever the review is that you want to leave. That would be hugely helpful. It helps the podcast grow. We have a lot on the go, and it's the easiest way to get the brand out there and share with other people. All right, so from there, let's get going. And number 2, for those listening over on the Prepper Broadcast Network, this week, man, I say it every single week, but if you're not listening or following PBN, you really should be. There's always top quality content over there. I see Charlotte. How are you? My beautiful daughter. So this week, James, on Monday night on Preppers Live, had Dr. William W. Forgy. I apologize. I don't know how to pronounce that. He come on talking all about emergency medicine, which is great. Ryan and Colin on the Next Generation podcast, they had a great episode on truck and vehicle tents. They always have good information. And then Phil and Andrew on the Matter of Facts podcast, they live quite a ways apart. They actually were able to get together and do a live stream together and had an epic rant session. So if you want to check that out, feel free. It was good. Trust me. Now, number 3, join Telegram. If you're not on Telegram, that is where all the cool kids hang out. Hello, Cormac. How are you? Cormac says, hi, being in Ireland, don't normally catch a live show. Happy St. Paddy's Day, my friend. Yes, and happy St. Paddy's Day. That's great. So yes, if you haven't joined Telegram, come by and join the Toolman Tim's Workshop Telegram group. We have a lot of good interaction, share a lot of, back and forth information. Today, somebody, we posted up a picture of some holes in the inside of their truck, and we tried to help them figure out what brackets might have been in there, why they were there, the whole work. So I'm pretty sure that was Zachariah. I hope it was anyway. So yes, please join that. The link is in the description below. Now, I don't know about you guys, but we have had just the greatest weather. It is just, oh my God, the snowbanks are melting quick. Anything that's been cleared all winter is not dry, but at least snow free. We're going to be in that 2 weeks of mud season here in Alberta before it gets so dry the farmers are complaining about it again. But it has been gorgeous. So I wanted to show you guys, for those in the video, something that came in the mail today. So I'll see if I can hold that up there. So this is, I don't know what you want to call it, a generic or a knockoff DeWalt 20-volt battery. This is a 5 amp hour. So if you keep an eye out on the channel, it's probably going to be 3 or 4 weeks down the road. I want to run it through its paces. But Ford Ferguson, if you guys know, you may have seen Ford in here once in a while, but if he's listening to this, he's a truck driver, always on the road. He's been at me for a long time to do a roundup of the generic Amazon DeWalt battery compared to a DeWalt battery. So we've got one of these coming. This is, I don't even know what the brand is. Man, if I could find it. Waitley, Waitley. Hey, Carrie Brown, how are you? Nice to have you. So we are going to, I'm going to run this through. We're going to do it just like we did with, if you haven't seen it, the video this week was great. I had a lot of fun with it. It was the new Power Stack DeWalt batteries. Oh, they were too much fun. It's too much fun to play with it. I don't want to spoil the review, but man, they're worth the money. Let's just put it that way. And happy St. Patty's Day, Martinson family. Nice to have you in here tonight too. Okay, so I don't know if the irony's been lost on anyone, but first off, let's slide into this and talk about it a little bit. But who has ever lost something? Raise your hand. I'll put both up. Hey, Chris, how are you? Yeah, so who's ever lost a tool? How about you get kind of that, I hate to call it Alzheimer's, but your brain just doesn't work. You put something down, you're like, oh, I'll remember where I put that, and then I lost it. Well, if you guys follow me on social, you will probably have heard me mention at least once or twice that I lost my favorite hammer. Carrie Brown says Leatherman. Yes, absolutely. So here's the deal. I'm not sentimental about a lot of things, but some of my tools, really only got a couple of them. This one was when Becky and I very first moved in together. We weren't even married yet. She let me spend, I want to say it was about $35 on a hammer. I love that hammer. I still have that hammer. I've built 3 chicken coops with it. I've built a couple of sheds. I sided my entire house with that hammer this summer. And then I lost it because I didn't put it away where I should have. Didn't organize, didn't store it, whatever you want to say. Anyway, 2 nights ago, we were getting ready to haul out my dump truck. It's been sitting all fall, all winter behind a snowbank. We're getting ready to use it. My brother-in-law goes to open up the hood, and lo and behold, what does he find? But my missing DeWalt adjustable pliers and my missing hammer. I was so happy I give him a hug. He just laughed. So make sure you put your shit back where it goes. I'm pretty good at it 75% of the time, maybe 80% of the time. But this was the one where it really hurt. It stung. I hated it. Chris Dixon says, no, I'm going to bring that one up. You guys got to see this. 90% of the time in the shop is spent looking for stuff. I just had 2 minutes ago. Yes. So that seems to be an ongoing issue. And quite often, if I'm looking for something to do on a Sunday afternoon, I'll tell Becky, hey, I'm going out to the shop. And she's like, are you going out to the shop to organize the shop? And I'll be like, yes, I am, because you have to stay on top of it. And I just love going out in the shop. I turn my Bluetooth speaker on, listen to some music. When the weather's nice like this, you roll up the garage door. And sometimes I'll just go out and sit in my lawn chair like an old man and look out the garage. Not very often, though, but it's enjoyable. So, yes, keep it, keep things organized. We're going to get into that. But I just wanted to share that story. I thought it was pretty ironic. I think it's Allie from out in Nova Scotia. She messaged me on MeWe, and she was happy that I found my hammer. And she also found some humor in the irony that tonight's topic was on organization and storage when I just lost my favorite hammer. So Martinson family says, I think I'm on my 7th East Wing 20-ounce Rip Claw. Yep, that was, well, I'm on my first one still, but it's my 20-ounce East Wing, and I love that hammer. It's just awful. Feels like an extension of you. And I got to say hi to my buddy Jaggy Thistle across the pond. Just got your letter, buddy. Showed up a couple days ago. The girls are really excited. He says, good morning, brothers. Hope all is well. It's my 2-year anniversary from catching the Rona. Where does the time go? Absolutely. And I am glad you are healthy and up and around, my friend. It's great to have. And hey, Ted McDonald, how are you tonight? And Chris says, there's a serious cache of tape measures on my property somewhere. So I didn't include this tip later on, but you ever see the meme where you're like, if you ever get lost in the woods, just start talking about politics and somebody will show up? Well, that works that way with tape measures. If you lose a tape measure, go buy a new one and you'll find your old one. It's absolute raccoon stash, Chris Martinson family said. So I lost my, I've switched over to the DeWalt recently, but I loved my Stanley Fat Max tape measure. And I used the 35-footer. I love that thing. And I lost it. I went looking everywhere for it. I couldn't find it for nothing. So what did I do? I went and bought a new one, and I found it the next day. It was it was on the shelf in the pantry because I was using it to center a 4x8 whiteboard that I had on the wall in the hallway. Turned around, set it on a shelf, and then shut the door behind me. So yeah, we all do it. Hey, John Palmer. And Carrie Brown says the feeling when finding something lost is the best. Yeah, it really is. I don't know. It's hard to explain that feeling, and I'm going to sound like the biggest tool geek in the world, but seriously, I'm being facetious here a little bit, but I really did miss that damn hammer. When you have a hammer that you've used for a decade and a half, it just becomes part of you. You're used to the way it works, and no matter how hard you try, you just can't find the right one. So let's start with, let's bring this. Jaggy says, he says, I lose my keys and my glasses, and then I find the keys in the door, and my glasses are still on my head, even though I've searched and searched, thinking the Alzheimer's is starting. Well, you know what, guys? The other day, I panicked because I couldn't find my missing AirPod. The one was in my pocket. I went looking for the other one, and it was in my ear. So yeah, that's how it goes, right, guys? And then, yeah, you just can't win. I remember, I'm going to tell this story because Becky will appreciate it, but there was one time soon after we got married, we were staying with her parents for a little bit while we were renovating a house. And she asked me to run to the store to get something. Can't remember exactly what it was. Probably chips at the time, I'm guessing. And she said, just grab the keys and go. So I went to look for where you would normally leave the keys, either on the kitchen counter by the back door or, heaven help, on the key ring, the key hook by the door. It wasn't there to be found. So I asked her, I said, where did you put them? She couldn't find them. So we looked everywhere. You know where we found them? On the TV stand behind the TV. So that's a good place to put things, isn't it? It just so happens. Yeah, just happens. Hey, Homestead Glamour Girl, thank you for reminding to hit the like. Always appreciate it. And hello, John Palmer says, lost my mind and haven't been the same since. Well, the good thing is you wouldn't know you did, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, so let's start with, these are all tips. There's 40 of them. The first 3 are more rules than tips, but I had to put them in place here. So number 1, you can never have enough storage. And these first 2 rules are like the yin and yang of storage. So I'm going to place them both out at the same time, and then we'll talk about them. But rule number 1, you can never have enough storage. Rule number 2, you will always fill the storage that you have. I remember years ago, I was when I was a youth pastor at our church back home where mom and dad live. I remember we were always fighting, trying to find storage. And so we're like, you know what we need? We need a shed. So we I can't remember if we built it or we bought one. Anyway, we got a shed put outside of the back entrance of the church. And we were always fighting because we were putting stuff. The only place we had to store things was in the furnace room, which was illegal anyway. And it was always full. So we thought, okay, we'll build, it was like a 10 by 12 shed. It was huge. And within a year, that damn thing was full because storage goods, you always hang on to just as much as you can to fill up the storage space. And you always want a little more room for storage. You're always looking for more room for storage. And, if you have a, say, 16 by 24 foot garage, you're going to say, oh, it would be really nice if I had a 24 by 36 garage, like a 2-bay garage. Wouldn't that be great? And that's just how it goes. A person, they clash. They're polar opposites. But you can't have one without the other. So number 1, you can never have enough storage space. And number 2, you always fill up the storage space that you have. We have 2 sheds, a garage, and 2 storage containers. And they're all basically full because it just so happens. And Jaggy says, when you find a 20-pound note and you didn't even know you lost it, it's always a happy dance time when that happens. Yes. I put on my swimming trunks a couple years ago, put my hand in it, found a $10 bill. That always makes your day. So now number 3, and we're going to talk a lot about organization. But again, when I was in college, I was home for the summer. I worked at it was called New to You Music and Books. The guy that ran it, he's an old hippie. His name's Phil Robertson. Like the other Phil Robertson, but he played guitar and he used to run a bike shop. Anyway, he got allergic to latex or rubber or something, so couldn't fix bikes anymore. So he went into used cassettes, CDs, books, and baseball cards. And it was a great place to work. I loved it. And I went in one day, and the whole place looked like a friggin' whirlwind had gone through. And I said, what in the hell are you doing, Phil? And he looked at me, and he says, you know what? You have to make a mess to fix a mess. And that stuck with me for the rest of my life because I realized that sometimes when you're dealing with organization, the only way to overcome a huge issue or to get things straightened up is first, you've got to make a bigger mess. And that could mean literally pulling everything out from all your shelves to take stock of what you have, eliminating a bunch of shit, throwing things to the dump, whatever it is. But what it means is you need to, if you're busting at the seams and everything, you're like, I'm tripping over shit in my garage. I don't know where to put it. I don't know what to do. Then the first thing you got to do is make a mess. And that might sound counterintuitive. You're like, but I need to straighten it up and make it clean. Well, yes, but the first thing you need to do is haul it all out and figure out what you have, and then look and say, well, where can I put it? Because a lot of times the mess just gets so overwhelming in a garage that if you just haul it all out and then put it all back neatly, you figure you realize all of a sudden you have twice the amount of space that you thought you'd have. So it's just one of those things. You got to make a mess to fix a mess. Jaggy says, I would love some extra storage. My flat has the worst storage ever, but renting a storage unit is a hell of expensive, and it just can't justify it at this time. I know. It's just one of those things. And the thing is, here's the thing. Like I said, we could always use more storage, but we're always going to fill up the storage with what we have. So sometimes we got to get creative, right? Yeah, I get that too, John. I grew up in a middle-class kind of family, but, Becky and I's first 10 years of marriage were poverty-based, so I was always like, well, I'll hang on to that because I might just be able to use it. And that happened to us for years. And it took quite a few years of living out here on the prairies before I could really come to terms with needing to purge and get rid of things a lot. It just is. Yes, Jaggy, you can absolutely have that. You must make a mess, please. Yes, you can. And maybe that'll be a patch. Maybe we'll make one of those patches one of these times. So I got a few in the pipeline. It's going well. So, okay. So here's another one. This was one my dad always said. And some of these are tips, some of these are rules, and we'll work our way through them. But the next thing is have a place for everything and put everything in its place. And for some of us, this may not be an issue, but I'm thinking more, especially like back in my 20s when I ruined a lot of tools because I was too damn lazy to put them back in the garage. And I would just leave them outside in the rain or the snow or the mud or whatever the hell it was. I would just leave them there and they'd get rusty. I remember having just a beautiful socket set and I left it outside. And I remember I left it open of all things and it just got wet. And it was probably out there for like 3 months and they all went rusty and I just had to get rid of them. It was a mess. And so Christmas come along and Becky's like, hey, what do you want for Christmas? I told her a new socket set and she damn near slapped me. But she said, the only way you're going to get a socket set is if you take care of it. That was probably 12, 13 years ago. I still have that same socket set. I have every piece for it. The case is starting to wear out, but I've never lost it. Ever since then, I've started to take to heart the idea of having a place for everything and putting everything in its place. So when I go into my garage now, I've got a set of wood shelves. I went through it this summer and I purged a metric shit ton of stuff out of there. So much. And now, on that wood shelf, there's a place where my socket set goes every single time. Okay. Every single time, 9 times out of 10. Let's put it that way. I do pretty good with it because then I know where it's going to be. So Jaggy says, I also think I have a bit of a hoarder syndrome in me. There will be a time when I need it, maybe. Not now, but in 20 years, then maybe. Yeah, I get that too. We worry about that. And I've done a couple of videos about deciding how to get rid of things, how you choose what to save. And everybody needs to come to terms with all that stuff themselves. So, it is, you have to figure out what you want to keep. You have to figure out, will this really make my life better? Will it help me save money, make money? Can I use it for a project? Not just, well, I think I'll save this wax paper from the inside of a box of Cheerios because, I might need that to wrap my sandwich someday 4 years down the road, right? So, yeah, we have to have that kind of mindset. Eventually, we got to get rid of things. So here's another one. When you take things apart and you put them away, so like for instance, Becky has a backyard table. If we still have that one, I can't remember if we still have that one or not, but in order to fit it into the shed, you have to take the legs off it. You take the legs off it, and what do I end up getting stuck with? A bunch of Allen bolts. Now there's 2 ways to handle that. Number one, the best way is to take those bolts and screw them back into the hole where you took the legs off. So they're there. But on this table, for instance, you couldn't do that. So what I do, what my dad always told me to do, put them in a Ziploc bag, seal the Ziploc bag up, and then tape it to the table or the legs so that all the hardware is there. I do the same thing when I take a door off and you have those 3 hinge pins and you think, oh, I'll just set them here on the floor. No. What you do is you either slide them back into the door side hinge or the frame side hinge and you leave them there. Yes, Ziploc bag. Those are absolutely great, Cormac. I love them. Yeah, they work for so much. Now, here's another one. And this is something we do in our basement a lot. And that's at least a once a year organization. So even if things aren't too bad, it never hurts to put eyes on everything, because if something is set for an entire year in your garage, in your storage space, in your cubby hole, whatever it happens to be, there's a good chance that you might not need it anymore. We do it in our freezer. Well, we do freezer more often than that, but we have a storage space out here underneath the stairs, and it's mostly knickknacks and keepsakes, things from when the kids were little. We go through that every year. We have, you can't see it, but in the room behind my office where I am, we have a big storage area. And that is where everything goes, because I turned the other storage area into a pantry. So we go through it. We go through our seasonal stuff. We haul everything out. We put the Christmas stuff to the back, and we just go through it. We make it neat, and just organizing it makes it easier to live with and doesn't make it feel so overwhelming. Carrie says, love dropping screws in gravel. I try to always have some kind of catch-all with me. Absolutely. Now, this isn't an organizational tip, but it is something I finally broke down and bought not too long ago. We have Princess Auto here, which is like Harbor Freight. And I bought one of those, I think it's 18 inches wide with wheels and a strong magnet. After I finished redoing the siding on the house, I filled a 5-gallon bucket, 1.5 inches high, 2 inches high, with random, screws, nails, scraps of metal. It was surprising from all my property. So they're worth having. And a good magnet, I'm going to talk about magnets a little later on, but a good magnet is great for finding that kind of stuff. Just kind of slide it around and find where it goes, and it works great. Okay, from there, this is another one. Keep a purge mindset. And I don't mean like the purge where you get to shoot people once a year, although some people, anyway, no, we won't go there. But keep a purge mindset. So when you're looking at stuff, be strong about it. Before you go, make up your mind. I'm going to organize and I'm going to get rid of shit. That took me a lot of years to get to, because if you'd have seen my shed and storage area down Digby Neck where we used to live before we moved out on the prairies, I couldn't get rid of anything. I would keep everything. Empty bottles, didn't matter. And now, like I said, I've got my rules for how I keep things, why I keep things, where I keep them. And when I go out to start cleaning, I have a purge mindset now. And that is, if I can't find a use for it, or if I haven't used it in a while, I get rid of it and I sell it. I used to have, I had a bunch of woodworking tools that I hadn't used in a long time, and they were always in my way. I liked them. They were great. It was cool to have, and I never used them. So you know what I do? Onto Facebook Marketplace they go, and I sell them. And I price them to sell, so they go. It works so much better that way. Jaggy says, try selling things you sort and don't need. If it doesn't sell, then it's off to the charity shop. Yes, always good to get extra pennies, especially now when the cost of living is getting silly. Absolutely, except we don't have pennies in Canada anymore. They did away with them. Inflation, I guess. So now we have nickels. Just giving you a hard time, Jaggy. I got my mask and chainmail out too. Captioner 1 says, I want to keep everything too. I feel bad throwing things out. Yes. So like Jaggy said, you don't always have to throw them out. I mean, if it's something perfectly good, try to sell it first. Then, there we are. See? And then Capture said, good idea about selling them, then throwing them out. So try to sell them, try to donate them, and then send them to the landfill. And also, before you send them to the landfill, say it's electronics, for instance, we have bins here that we can throw all our old electronics in so they get recycled. They take the precious metals out of them, or they turn them into computers, that kind of stuff. So there's always options there. But you do need to keep a purge mindset. It doesn't mean you're going to fill the landfill up right away. But what it does mean is, if it's not giving you joy, if you're not getting practical everyday use out of it, purge it, get rid of it, get it going. Simple as that. Okay. Number 8, don't expect you're going to remember where everything is. It absolutely is true. How about my hammer, for instance? I get busy. My phone rings. I set something down. That's why I always have a place and everything is in its place. Simply because I absolutely, if I set something down in the wrong place, no matter how hard I think I'm going to remember, I'm not going to remember. And you probably won't either. I mean, I wish that you did, and you might. Maybe you're way better than I am. But don't pretend like, don't fool yourself in being lazy and say, oh, I'll remember where I put that. Don't bother. Put it back right now. Because if you do that, it'll save you a ton of stress and grief. Chris says, try to sell, try to give away, donate, then recycle or landfill. That's great. That's perfect. I could almost write a script for a live stream or a podcast on that right alone. That's perfect. And Martinson family says, thrift stores are like giant hoards of variable treasures. Yes, it used to be. The prices are getting outrageous even at thrift stores, but I used to find some really good stuff at them, and I still do a little bit, but it seems to be getting harder and the prices seem to be getting a little bit higher. Jaggy says, of course, someone else's junk is someone else's treasure, and that is a true story. Number 9, look for unused areas to store things. So for instance, I didn't think I had any more room in my truck for storage for emergency stuff. And then I realized that there was some empty space, not much, but kind of an empty 4 inches or so behind the back seats. So now I'm able to get my booster cables up behind there. I'm able to get my tow strap up behind there. And now they're not filling up those small compartments that are watertight and safe to put a bunch of other more important things in. So look around. Find them. Rafters. Some people think of that, but not everybody does. If you've got open rafters, or if you don't have open rafters, open up a space in your garage so that you can store things up overhead. That's my go-to spot for putting building supplies or things that I'm not going to use right away. So if I have a customer who buys an entire roll of vapor barrier to do their windows, whatever is left either goes to the landfill or I take it home with me. So it goes up overhead and I can use it for another job. If I'm driving along the highway and I see an entire roll of that beautiful bubble wrap insulation, home it comes, up over there. I don't save a lot of this old stuff, but we were cleaning up the church where my wife's daycare is about a year and a half ago. And we found an entire package of cedar clapboard siding from, I can't remember if it was the 1940s or 1950s, still has the label and everything on it. So it goes up overhead because I'll either sell that for a mint at some point, or more than likely, I'll use it for some kind of projects, and then it'll have a story behind it. Martinson family says, basement ceiling betwixt the cross braces. Yes, that is yet another spot. And I seen a really cool thing. I was doing some research for this, and they put these metal racking right up there so that you could store stuff up between the floor joists, but on a shelf. It was really quite slick. I like that. I should have had some pictures for you. Okay. Number 10, when you're organizing or storing things, make it easy to get the things you'll need a lot and bury the things you don't. So this time of year, my Christmas tree is all the way to the back in my storage area and all the way to the bottom. And of course, the Easter stuff is out front. So we kind of cycle through it. So we know the Halloween stuff is back there too, because I'm not going to need it for a while. Now, the slow cooker, the roasters, the things we might use 3, 4, 5 times a year, they're out front because then I can go in and reach them. That way I'm not tripping over all of the Christmas stuff, and it can stay nice and neat in the back for 11 months of the year until I'm ready for it. That works a lot better. Jaggy says, some people turn their noses up at buying from thrift charity shops because of stigma. Does not bother me. Where you buy it from, you get good deals sometimes. Oh, yeah, I got no problem with that. I'm the guy that used to walk the ditches here in Alberta in the spring when it would melt and make $30 an hour picking up bottles. I have no shame when it comes to making money. Turn that into 22. I turned it into a gun cabinet that's right behind me there and a bunch of other things. So if there's stuff out there, if there's a way to save money or make money, don't worry about what other people think. Standardize, number 11, standardize with storage containers. I am going to do an entire episode on standardizing in systems. But one thing I came up with about 4 years ago, I always seem to have a lot of just kind of miscellaneous stuff, whether it was plumbing parts, electrical shit, heating, cooling, that kind of stuff. So what I did was I went and I bought 6 or 8 Rubbermaid containers. I hope you guys call them Rubbermaid in the States or across the pond too, but just those big containers made by Rubbermaid with 2 handles and a locking lid, or at least a snap down lid. I went and bought a bunch that were all the same size. They all stacked properly. And then I labeled them all. And then I slid them all underneath my workbench, because traditionally my workbench was either a garbage catcher or just kind of unused, wasted space. So I was able to take so much of the clutter around my garage, things that I didn't need all the time. Camping gear, that was another one. Trailer hitch pieces. So I put them, of course, on the bottom because you'd never want to put them on top of something. But I just had a bunch and I would organize them. And I think I stacked them 4 wide and 2 high underneath there. And you know what I ended up realizing is after I had all that in there, over time, I've eliminated 5 or 6 of those because it was stuff I was hanging on to that I would use someday, and I never did. So a couple of them went to my backup shed out front, and about 4 of them have just eventually disappeared. So now I have some propane canisters under there and just 2 Rubbermaids. But yeah, so standardize in your storage containers. That way, well, a couple of reasons. If you break a lid, you can swap a lid out. And number 2, you know exactly how much space it's going to take up. And number 3, they're made to nest into one another, so they stack on top of each other. That's super important when it comes to organizing, is being able to use the best of your space, being able to snap things on top of one another. Number 12, a label maker is your best friend. Invest in one, or at least have something that can label things for you, because when you're dealing with small containers or small packages or things like that, you don't want to have to open them all the time and figure them out. So, I mean, a Sharpie works great, but if your writing penmanship is as atrocious as mine is, then get yourself a label maker. Becky has one at the daycare. I borrow it on occasion, and I used it for labeling my electrical panel, for instance. They're great. They give a nice, clean look. And of course, the old man in me likes to organize things like that. But they just allow you to see, they just allow you to know what's in something very quickly, not have to guess, and not have to open it. Absolutely. So Captioner has a question here. I will try to answer it at the end tonight. What's the best way to learn to do things as a newbie? I literally can't even hang a picture because I'm scared the nail will hit the wire and burn the house down. Where do I start? So I will try at the end here to answer that for you before we get through everything else. Jaggy says shipping containers, if you have a place to put it, is a fantastic investment, especially now because they're only getting shipped one way or in stacking. Yes. So I have one in my backyard, and then we lease both of them because it's a good, how do you want to put it? It's the proper way to do it to make the best deduction for your business. So we have one at the house, and then I don't have room for a second one in my backyard. So we lease one downtown as well, which is great. That's where a lot of the furniture goes that we get from old houses and things like that. It goes there for a very short period of time until we sell it. Or if your kid moves away, like our daughter did, then some of her shit goes in there until I throw it away. No, but it's there anyway. Okay. Number 13, save old containers. I love it. I've got Costco pickle jars. I've got margarine containers. 2 kilograms? So what's that, like 4-pound peanut butter jars, coffee cans. All of them make great containers for screws and nails, miscellaneous electrical connectors, whatever you happen to have. It just doesn't matter. If you can keep it contained, it's one step in the right direction for organizing things. I love it. Now, number 14, this one's great. I learned this one from my dad, and I want to say they're probably still up there. But in the basement, up on the floor joists, Dad had a bunch of old jam jars and Cheese Whiz jars, and he took the lid and he held it up to the roof, and I think he used nails, but you could use screws, and he put a nail right through the center of the lid and nailed it right up to the floor joist. Then he had a glass jar that he put his nails in. He put it up and screwed it into the lid. So it's up out of the way where you're not going to hit it. It's not going to fall and break, but you can see through it to see what you need. You pop it down and it automatically has a place to put it when he's done. I love that. I've used it on a couple of occasions, but it works great. It doesn't have to be a glass jar, but what helps is having a metal lid so that you can screw through it without it breaking. You could probably get away with it with a big peanut butter jar, but a pickle jar would work great. I don't know about you guys, but it's getting harder and harder to find glass jars, but it works great. And I know he still has some of those old ones up overhead. So remember, look up when you want to store. And again, think outside the box. That one was really good. Jaggy says, make emergency buddy stoves with the cardboard from Amazon and tuna cans, an emergency way to cook. I love that. That's great, because that's one thing we never have a shortage of in my house is Amazon cardboard. Tobacco cans, yes. I haven't seen those in a long time, but growing up, every old man had 3 or 4 or 6 or 8 tobacco cans on a shelf in the garage, and they just used them for storing miscellaneous nuts and bolts. My grandfather ran a alternator generator shop where they used to rewind and unwind motors, something that never even happens anymore. And they had a bunch of old tobacco cans. I remember like Players Light and things like that. And they were so neat looking. I loved them, but they were always there. I loved them. And they used to get this like greasy, smelly hand cleaner that used to come in a big metal jar or metal can that looked like a coffee can. Those were great to store stuff in too. They had kind of a greasy smell, but it got the oil off your hands. Number 15, Crown Royal bags. Yeah, they'd be great too, Martinson family. Barrels are great for storing long-handled tools. So I'm always on the hunt for the occasional barrel. I got a couple that had like methyl alcohol or something in them. There's a place across town that puts out free wood all the time and occasionally has free barrels as well. So I grabbed a couple of those. I used them for in the wintertime. I put all of my garden tools in there. So, your rake, your hoe, your pick, all of that. I put everything in there. And then in the summer, those come out into my garage, and my snow shovels, my roof rake, my ice chippers, all of that go in there. So it keeps, what's great is because if you try to lay them up against a wall somewhere, invariably, you're going to knock them over and do a sideshow bob and step on the rake and hit yourself in the teeth or knock yourself out, which I've never knocked myself out, but I stepped on a rake at my grandfather's one time and it was awful. So don't do it. Keep them all together. So find yourself an old barrel or two and they work great. Chris says, my uncle had Cheese Whiz jar lids screwed to the bottom of a shelf and the jars would screw into them and hang. Yes, just like my dad. That must have been that age. It's always great. They had great ideas. Number 16, I'm always on the hunt for old garbage cans. I use them for collecting scrap metal, wire, and of course, putting all my redeemables in. You can sort them, separate them. I also use them for leaves when I'm cleaning up in the fall yard cleanups for people. I do it a lot. But just keep your eye out when I go to the Cormac says weekly rake slap. Yes. So when I go to the landfill or when I'm cleaning up, a lot of times when I'm cleaning up people's leftover rentals and things like that, something I'll find a lot of is garbage cans in their backyard, stuff they just leave behind. So the garbage goes in it. I dump the garbage loose at the landfill. I bring the garbage cans back with me. Those good heavy duty Rubbermaid ones, either the big gray ones or the green ones with the lines down the side, grab them. You can never, ever have enough garbage cans. I use them for organizing everything. So Captioner says, metal or plastic garbage cans, I like them too for storing things like coir, soil, different things like that. Yeah. So yeah, I like the plastic ones because they tend not to rust. The really good ones that stay flexible even when it's cold, those tend to be my favorite. But I've been known to grab a metal barrel or two. Just where I store them, water tends to collect. And yeah, so you just have to be careful. Never found them for free. Well, see, I do a lot of yard cleanups. I do a lot of rental cleanups. So I end up getting them that way. They just kind of multiply for me. But yeah, I get it. Chris, yep, I know this one right here. You just drive around here after a wind and you can pick them out, mostly the easterly fence just out of town. He's not lying. That's the same thing I do for picking up empty jerry cans. I've gotten, I don't know. If I guessed, I'd probably be wrong, or I probably told you a different number before, but I know it's at least a half dozen over the years. I found one completely full of gas, but most of them were empty, but they're great to have. So yes, always drive around on the prairies. Yeah, things just blow until they reach a fence or the occasional. And when I say occasional, I mean very occasional ditch. But yeah, it's a great place to look for things. Number 17. And you guys have probably seen this one before, but not everybody has. On my workbench, on the end, I took a piece of strapping, 1x4, nailed it to, I put a support piece underneath, and then I drilled a whole bunch of holes in it. Because if you're like me, everybody has miscellaneous screwdrivers and a bunch of other things like that. Just constant. They're everywhere, always. And you need to have a place to put them. So I like to put them down in a wood bar like that. They store, you end up not losing them. They're safer. It's just a nice, neat way to do it. If you could see my dad's basement shop, it's not his garage, but it's his basement shop. That's exactly what he did with all of his as well. And it just works great. And if you break it, no big deal. Grab another scrap piece of wood, get your drill out, make yourself another screwdriver holder. Number 18, so one thing in garages I find quite often is it's hard to have enough plugs or enough electrical stuff. So I got this from my dad, but power bars are great, and you can basically make them permanent. If you look on the back, they tend to have 2 or 4 screw holes back there. So you can use a piece of painter's tape, put it on the back, poke the holes in it, then turn around, put them on, put your screws in the right spot. And then what you can do is you take that power bar, put it on the screws, and snap it down into place. So now what you have is basically a permanent 6-plug outlet right there. Just plug it into your regular outlet. And then you've basically got unlimited power, because most things you use in the shop don't require a lot of power. They just require an open outlet. So that's worked great for me. I did it in my daughter's room as well. Alice upstairs, she doesn't have a lot of plugs. So I brought what was it, 5 or a 6? I guess it was a 6 power adapter, brought it down, mounted it right to the wall. So she has area to plug in all of her electronics, and it works really good. Number 19, this is one, again, think about organizing up or on the shelves. So one of the things I try to do is if something's in the way all the time, I try to figure out a way to organize it. So a couple of things that were always in the way were my backpack blowers. They're big, they're heavy, they don't sit on shelves, and they got this great big arm on them that's always sticking out. So I thought, well, how in the hell am I going to organize that? Well, they have a handle up here that you can pick it up by and carry it, but it's not the way it's designed. It doesn't work on a regular hook. So what I did was I made 2x4 L brackets with a small triangle reinforced piece of plywood. And now I just slide it on there and I clip the arm in, and it works just like that. Now, ladders, same thing. I used to keep them outdoors, and I was always worried somebody was going to run off with them. So one day I got organizing in my shop. I said, I got room right here. So on my long easterly wall, I brought in all 3 of my big ladders. I put one up, I marked it, and the extension ladder goes on the bottom, and I put 2 2x4 arms sticking out, and then I did the same for my step ladders, and they fit just perfect. So think about organizing up and use things like 2x4 brackets or plywood brackets to hold things on the wall. Jaggy says, if you want a covert sandbag wall for shit hits the fan, have a row of plastic garbage cans or wheelie bin. That is great. And fill with sand. Presto, convert a hardened fighting position. So then you have cover and concealment, and it doesn't look like anything. Love it. That's great. We'll have to do an entire episode on the lowly garbage can. It sounds like we could use them for a lot. Okay, how about this one? Number 20. And this might go against what you'd think, but try to use open cupboards or shelves as opposed to closed cabinets or cupboards, because there's a few reasons. But if it's open and everyone can see it and you can see it, you're more likely to keep it neat, organized, and you're more likely to know what's in there. Also, you're more likely to put it away, even though this might sound foolish. Literally, the extra step of having to open a cupboard door and put something away makes it less likely for someone to put it back. And number three, you can see everything. So you know what you have, and you're less likely to go buy an extra jug of power steering fluid. Ask me about that, simply because you can see it on your shelf. So use open shelves instead of enclosed cupboards if you can. And I know it goes against what you think, but it is a great organizational hack. All right. Number 20, number 21. This one is so simple, you might laugh, but it's literally put shit away when you're done with it. And this was something that I struggled with for a lot of years, like I told you. But literally, I remember a few months ago, Amy from the Farmer's Kind of Life, she had an entire episode on organizing around the homestead, the pantry, that kind of stuff. And one of her biggest tips, again, was I don't think she worded it this way, was put shit away as soon as you're done with it. Let's put it this way. That's what my wife had to train me to do when we used to bake, because I would leave everything till the end and then have to clean up a huge, massive mess. Didn't know where anything went, lost shit, broke things, made a mess. So what I would do is, as soon as I was done with things, I would wash them up and put them away. So yeah, today I ended up going and getting some brake fluid, and I ended up a couple days ago getting another jug of power steering fluid since Jaggy asked. And my brother-in-law came to the house today, and he's like, "Oh, I topped up the power steering in the dump truck for you." I said, "Where the hell did you get power steering fluid?" He said, "On the shelf." And I had literally gone in there and looked for it and couldn't find it. So just because I think I'm organized doesn't mean I'm always organized. But yeah, so put shit away as soon as you're done. Because if you set it down, no matter whether, what do they say? The best intentions of mice and men. Yes. And so this is what Chris Dixon says. Clean up after each job before moving on, even if they're side by side. Seems counterproductive, but in the end, it saves time. It makes for a safer work environment. It makes for an easier work environment. You're less likely to damage other stuff, and you're more likely to know where things are. Because if you leave a great big pile of sawdust in the middle of the floor, and then you drop your next tool or screwdriver in there, the thing about sawdust is you're not going to hear it when it hits. You might not even realize you dropped something. And then you go and sweep everything up, throw it out, off to the landfill it goes. And then that M5 metric bolt with reverse fine threads that the only way you can order it is on eBay, and it's a 17-week wait, is gone. You're going to wish you'd cleaned that mess up before you started working with those parts. So put things away, clean up the mess, do it as you go. Here's another one. This was more for looking after stuff, but another thing that I've done over recently, so this is number 22, is invest in covers for everything. So my outdoor AC unit, I bought a specific cover for it on Amazon. So in the fall, that cover goes on. In the spring, it comes back off. My barbecue, I bought an incredibly, Oxford polyester. So if you're looking for a good quality cover for any gear that you have that's going to be outdoors in, well, not many of you live where I do, but outdoors in -40 temperatures, get yourself something made out of Oxford polyester. I've now had my barbecue cover for 3 winters, and there's a little tear in it, but it's because I cut it with a sharp corner, not because I was pushing through it. So I could never get a barbecue cover or any type of cover to last me more than 1 winter, because what happens here is your traditional vinyl covers, you try to take them off when it's -20 or colder, and they crack, snap, and pop, just like some Rice Krispies, except they're no good for nothing afterwards. But I've got, like I said, I got one for my AC unit. I've got one for my barbecue. I've got one for my fire pit. I've got one for my generator. Get yourself covers because, well, number one, other shit's not going to fall in it. It's going to protect your investment. It's going to keep it clean. It's going to keep it organized. And it's going to save you on maintenance in the long run. Number 23. This one's a little similar, but it's different. And again, this might be something that you're just like, "Oh, Tim, I know this one." But I never learned it until I moved to Alberta, and that is keep garbage cans and garbage bags everywhere. So when we first moved here, we couldn't get a place in this town. So we lived in a small town 40 minutes away. We had to travel all the time. And I had a little tiny garage, and it was just big enough for my Ford Ranger to pull in and park in. And it was always getting messy, the Ranger was, because I never had anywhere. So I would pull into park and I never had anywhere to throw garbage. So I come up with the idea. I'm like, well, why don't I put a garbage can in the garage? I know, novel concept, right? But I was there. So what happened was every day I would get home from work, I would pull up, I'd open up the side door of the truck, and I would take my garbage, my bottles, and I would throw things in there. So now in my garage, ever since, I've always had a bottle garbage can and a garbage can, and that helps contain the mess. And I know it's something so simple, but it absolutely works. So just have a place. If you have a place to throw the garbage, you're less likely to throw it on the floor or make a mess out of it. And also, you can never have enough garbage bags around. I buy the big 100 packs of contractor grade garbage bags because I use it for just about anything and everything. And so I always have them, but have them to, how do you want to put it? Have them to throw garbage in. That's it. It's just simple. Keep garbage bags around and have garbage cans wherever you're going to be working and cleaning up. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's such a great tip, Chris. Man, remember this, guys. But yes, in a dry refuse bin, keep 3 or 4 new folded bags in the bottom of the can. Such a great idea. We used to do janitorial work at a local oil patch business, and I would always take a handful of garbage bags, throw them in the bottom. It would save you so much time because the next time you change it out, just grab the bag and throw it in. I got to give a shout out to RC119. Looks like a new member of the workshop community. Said, just finished watching your Furman generator video. It was awesome. Hello from Chicago, sir. Well, hello from Alberta as well. It's nice to have you. Jaggy says, only time I seen a big pile of sawdust on the floor was 40 odd years ago at school. And someone sick on the floor, school janitor was cleaning it up. Yes, I'm that old. Well, you could get a job as a pixie dust spreader on the Tilt-A-Whirl, like Uncle Eddie, what was it, his son in Christmas Vacation? So that kind of stuff, right? Okay, how about where we're at? Number 24. Tire racks or wire racks are great to get large items off the ground. I've got a couple I used to do a lot of work for, and one of the first things they asked me to do was install a tire rack on the wall because a couple things. Tires are huge, and they're always in the way. And they're friggin' heavy, especially when they're on rims, even if they're not. And they're always in the corner. And of course, they're round. So one thing they don't do is fit in a damn corner properly. So what you want to end up doing is, again, get them up and out of the way. Also, look into the fact that your local tire shop, if you swap out with them, they might store them for you. But if they don't, get yourself a purpose-built tire rack, put it up on the wall in your shed or your garage, and get your tires up off the ground, because then you've just created a whole bunch of free storage space. Or look into those ceiling-mounted wire rack storage shelves. They're great. I put one of them in for the same couple. They go in the back, so they basically cover half the roof of a 4x8 shed, and they're sturdy. You take lag bolts and you bolt them right into the roof trusses, and you can put, again, a metric shit ton or half a metric shit ton, I don't know, up there, and you can store a lot of stuff. So again, get it up and out of the way. Now, number 25, this is a good one. Tell you a little story. Last winter, I used to use my quad for plowing, my four-wheeler, and I ended up, oh yeah, so we got a lot of questions. We might end this early and do a couple quick questions here. So my battery died. What happened was I lost the bolt to the battery in my quad. I made some damage, doesn't matter. So what I ended up having to do was bring my entire nuts and bolt container with me down to this local computer shop where my four-wheeler had died. I get it down there, I set it in the back seat, and it was one of those nice pull-out drawer units. So I set it in the back seat, I hit the brakes, the whole thing went forward, and all the shelves or all the drawers came out, everything went everywhere. So from that day forward, I have invested in a whole bunch of the DeWalt flat pack organizational kits. They are friggin' great. So now I have 2 kits with all my nuts and bolts in them. I can grab them, throw them in the back seat, throw them in the box of the truck, and Bob's your uncle. Nothing's going anywhere. It has a place for everything. You can see through the lid, keeps everything organized. I've got, let me see, 1, 2, I've got two 20 compartment ones, I've got two 10 compartment ones, and I've got one half-size 10 compartment one, and I have them all in kind of a 2 foot by 2 foot square on one shelf. And I have a lot of stuff in there that used to go into all these different containers, storage stuff, the whole works. It organized things up so much. Jaggy says plenty of small bin bags too. If the water goes off and you can't flush the toilet, haha, I have done this in empty rentals before. If the water goes off and you can't flush the toilet, place a garbage bag can under the seat in the bag, poop in it, and then take it outside and bury it or throw it in a dumpster. But yes, I've done that many times. I've actually even done that on a toilet that wasn't installed in anything, because when nature calls, you got to answer. Let's go to number 30, guys, and then I'll answer a couple quick questions there that we had. So we've got, let's see, number 26. Leave items in the box. So spark plugs are cheap. So when I buy a spark plug, I buy a box of spark plugs. It's usually 5 or 6 of them, and I keep them in there. So it gives it a handy dandy carrying case or notebook or whatever you want to know. Anyway, you keep it in there. You have the number you need, and then I take in a Sharpie and I write on it what it goes to. So the snowblower, the tiller, whatever it happens to be, and then they're organized. And then when I get down to 1 or 2, I end up switching out and going from there. Howdy, renovations and repairs. It says first time catching Tim live. I'm pretty sure we just broke a record. I seen we hit to 18 live streams. I can't remember if the record's 17 or 19. Doesn't matter. Anyway, it's great to have a whole bunch of people here. I love it. Chris Dixon says, I love the 24 bin Plano bins for small screws, cotter pins, etc. Built a shelf just for them. They're awesome. I love them. Yes. Okay, so number 26. Yeah, another one. Same type of thing, but old V-belts. So when I take a V-belt off, I put the used V-belt, as long as it's not completely ripped, drives me crazy. I slide it back into the sleeve, and then 2 things. Number 1, I hang it up overhead. I write on it what item it goes to. I just hang it up on a nail up in my shed somewhere. It doesn't matter. It's there. I know what I need. It gives me an emergency backup if I happen to wreck one when I haven't had a chance to get a new one yet, but it also gives me the V-belt number to reorder a proper one. Air filters, same thing. Number 1, you don't want to get them dirty, but number 2, you keep them in the box. It gives you the number to order them off of. It gives them protection, and it lets you know, hey, exactly what you have and where it is. Number 27, magnets are great. So a couple different things, but if I'm working on a project, I can't have enough of those magnetic part trays. I probably have 7 or 8 of them now, which isn't that many. So I use them when I'm putting together IKEA furniture. So I'll usually, I'll separate the stuff into 2 or 3 little magnetic bins. But something else I do, if I have a bunch of miscellaneous parts, I throw them in that metal tray, and then I stick them on the side of the metal shelf I have in my garage. Nothing goes anywhere. The magnet's stronger than the stuff that wants to fall out of it. And so it's just wasted space I wasn't using before. So it all goes in there and goes right on the side of the shelf. And it works great. How about number 28? This is another one. Oh man, we've got all kinds of new faces in here. John Marlin says, hey Tim, great to catch you live. I'm a small landlord, 29 doors, and have recently committed to becoming organized. I'm the most unorganized person I know. Thanks for talking about this. Not a problem at all. And you know what? I feel like, when they say you're pointing one finger at everybody else and you got 3 pointing back at you, well, that's the way I am too. So I'm not perfect at this. I really suck at this sometimes as well. But I wanted to share everything that I know. So if you're a landlord, John, I'm going to share with you one of these that I just learned the other day. So I just took over a new 12-unit, it's not new, but new to me, 12-unit rental for property management. And I went to pick up the keys from the guy, and he's like, hey, I got a board for you. I thought, oh, okay. Most people, when they give you keys, they give you a great big key ring. Well, number 1, this was a cool board that he had up on the wall. Everything was labeled, but the absolute best part, I loved it. So every key ring had a snap, what do you call them? Like a snap ring on them. So like something you would use, you pull back and hook a dog leash to, had that. And instead of having a hook on there, he put an eye hook. So you know how normally you'd have an open hook to put the key ring on? Well, this one was a closed ring. that he screwed in there, and then he used this little snapper to hold the keys onto it. So no matter how hard you hit the shelf or the wall, the keys are never falling off because they're spring-loaded in place. I'm seriously copying that. It was the best idea I've ever seen. Chris says magnetic bars are awesome for screwdriver storage too. Yeah, magnetic bars are the cat's ass for a lot of things, but they work great. And John says I keep an old belt in the vehicle. Yeah, so if you got an old serpentine belt that's got some cracking and stuff, it could end up saving your hide. Literally, if you're out in the middle of nowhere and you snap a belt and you got the old one, pick it up or, put it on and have at it. So where were we here, guys? We got number 28. This might seem weird or foolish or whatever, but of course, if you're like me, I've got adhesives and liquids and tapes, and I always found that my tape was everywhere. So my painter's tape would be in my painter's box. My aluminum ductwork tape was in my heating and cooling box. But what I found the best thing for me was, and we're going to talk about this one next, but I have all my tapes in a single, and I don't mean like, Garth Brooks tapes. I mean like adhesive tapes. I have all my different rolls of tapes in a single milk crate so that whenever I need some kind of tape, I just go there. Because then, number one, I know what I have. And number two, if I can't find exactly what I want, there's a good chance there's an alternative right there. So, if I don't have painter's tape, maybe I've got masking tape. If I don't have duct tape, maybe I have aluminum tape, that kind of stuff. So it's all in one place. I know where all my tape is, and it just saves you just a little bit of time. Number 29, this one is great. Milk crates are your friend. I know Chris Dixon likes milk crates as well. Milk crates are, whenever we go into a house that we secure for the bank that people have abandoned and left behind, the first thing I look for is milk crates in the garage. I get so excited when I see milk crates because I don't want to buy them. It's just kind of a game I play. I like to collect them, but I have I probably have 12.5 milk crates now that I've collected, from the landfill, from empty houses, from abandoned rentals, a couple from the side of the road. I love milk crates. And again, they're uniform. They stack together. You can see what's in them. They're small enough that they don't get overweighed, and they work really, really well. Yes. Okay. So RC119, I'm in the market for a camping off-grid generator. What do you suggest? Hold that question for just a minute. I'm going to do one more here so we get to 30 tips. I said it was going to be 40, and then I will go back and I'll knock out these two questions for you. And if anybody else has any, hell, I'll answer those too. You see, Chris Dixon says milk crates. Oh yeah, baby, milk crates. Who doesn't love milk crates? But yeah, they're great. You can even organize a deep freeze with them. Also, in a pinch, a 20 or 30 pound propane tank fits perfectly in one of those, snug. So if you need to take one to the local refill station, put it in there, throw it in the back of your vehicle. It's going to keep it from tipping around. Works great. And this one's just simple. Number 30. Hey, we got what do we got? I love David from over in Facebook. Hi, David. How are you? Just liked our video. Put tall, skinny items in the corner or next to garage door tracks. So in most small garages, your door is going to roll up. And what I find is you normally have a man door on one side, but on the other side, you've got the garage door track, and there's usually like a foot or two of unused space right there. And you're not going to put a lot of big stuff there because, again, the garage door rolls up and down. But I find it's a really great place to put things like long crowbars, like long pieces of pipe. I have my scrapers in there right now. What else do I have? Like metal stock. So I cleaned out an empty trailer a while back and I ended up getting a whole bunch of threaded rod, unthreaded rod, square metal tubing. I think that was about it. And it all went in that corner. It was a perfect spot to organize it because it's out of the way. Nobody's going to trip over it. It's not going to fall. And it's just completely unused space. So look for that unused space. Absolutely. So yeah, that's 30. We'll save 10 for another. I am sure I've got another 40 tips here. So we'll take 10 of those and we will save them for another episode, guys. So let's go back here. I want to go back first. Was it RC that had a question? It was before that. Sorry, guys. If anybody can remember what that question was, we're going to find it here. Oh, there we go. Okay. Captioner number one, or captioner one, why did I say number one? Like there's two of you or something. Says, what is the best way to learn to do things as a newbie? I literally can't even hang a picture because I'm scared the nail will hit a wire and burn the house down. Where do I start? Okay. There's a lot of things, but start small. So if you want to learn how to, let's take learning how to hang a picture, for instance, right? Well, like Dad always said, there's more than one way to skin a cat. Isn't that just an awful illustration? Who wants to skin a cat? Anyway, so if you're okay, first off, figure out why you're nervous about something. Are you nervous because you don't know? Are you nervous because you think you might frig up? Or is it just the unknown? Whatever it happens to be. So figure out why you're nervous and then go from there. Say, okay, if it's because I don't know what I'm doing, how can I fix that issue? So what can I do to help myself know things just a little bit better? So it could be as simple as watching a bunch of YouTube videos on how to hang a picture. But here's the thing. If you're scared about, for instance, hitting a wire and burning the house down, I mean, chances that are very slim. There's a much better chance that you're going to get a shock or you're going to pop a breaker. But what I would say is look at something like the 3M Velcro strips. I use those to hang very heavy pictures. Where I'm sitting, where I sit, or where I did sit with my recliner, my wife had a very heavy, probably 15-pound framed glass picture of Santa Claus for Christmas. And I put 4 of these double-sided Velcro strips and stuck it to the wall. And that sucker never moved. So sometimes if you're scared of an issue, look into it enough and you're going to find there's a safer, better solution that'll work just as good. But now, to go back to the idea of, oh my God. All right, I got to take a break here, guys. John Palmer just said, I said, who would skin a cat? And John just put up, I sure wouldn't want to eat a cat with the hair on. Well, you are correct there, sir. And I laughed way too loud. So back to Captioner One's question. So yes, if you're looking at, okay, so how do I, he also asks, or they, I assume, sorry, I don't want to assume your gender there, Captioner, but says, how do I know where the wires are? Well, you can look at picking up a stud finder that also has AC detection in it, and they're not very expensive. So you can go on Amazon or Home Depot and look for a stud finder that will also find where an electric wire is. And it's going to beep at you and tell you, hey, this is a hot spot here, so don't do it. You know, there's not going to be a lot of wires, but if you happen to find that one spot, okay. Now, the other thing is, if you use a stud finder and you find the stud and you find the center of the stud, you don't need to worry about hitting a wire because all that is there, a stud detector or AC, which is electrical. So look for a stud finder that also has electrical wire detection built into it. And they're not very expensive and it'll beep and tell you where it is. But even if you just use a plain old standard stud finder and you're using less than a 4-inch screw, it will end up going into the wood and you won't have to worry about it. So the stud finder that will also tell you if there's electrical wires behind there, it's gonna beep one way if it's a wood stud, and then it's going to give you a different beep if it detects electricity behind there. So those are the type of things you want to find, and they work great, and it'll give you peace of mind. But like I said, if you use a stud finder and you find that, what would it be, 1.5 inch wide stud right there, you can know with certainty. Then no, I was being a little facetious there when you say less than a 4-inch screw. So the reason I say that is because your stud is a 2x4. So by the time you add your drywall to it and you screw into it, if you went more than 4 inches, you'd probably end up through the stud and out through the outside of the house. So I was just being a little bit funny there. Sorry. But yeah, I mean, if you're hanging a picture, you're only going to use 1.5 inches, maybe a 2-inch screw. And if you find the stud, you're going to screw into the stud. You have no worry about hitting a live wire. But when it comes to learning any new skill, the first thing is, okay, a couple things. Start off small. So if you have 0 skill, start with the occasional start with something that requires just a little bit of skill. Watch a few videos so you're comfortable with what you need to do. And then if it's a multi-step process, whatever the job happens to be, break that down into bite-sized pieces. That's what I always do. So if you're learning how to side a house, I use that example all the time because that's what I did last year. First, you're going to want to learn how to hang your starter strip. Then you want to learn how to put your corners up. What you don't want to do is take the entire time and watch 400 videos about siding an entire house, because you're going to be overwhelmed, and you're going to be, overwhelmed, really. That's what I'm looking for. You're going to be overwhelmed because you're not going to remember anything. So you want to take the time and learn the first step of whatever the process is, and then do that step, and then go back and learn what the second step is, and then do that. Get yourself as much information as you can, but spend a little bit of money on the proper tools, like in this instance, a stud finder that also has electrical detection. And if you do that, you'll be well on your way to working your way up. So then what I always say is, when you're learning a new skill, always test things at home first, and always do something that's just a little bit out of your comfort zone. So if you've never changed a tire on a car, don't try to do an entire engine swap tomorrow. What you might want to do is learn how to change a tire on a car. Do that first, and then maybe learn how to top up your fluids and that kind of stuff. Looks like I'm missing a really good or a really inappropriate conversation about cats here. I'm not sure. I don't know if I... They also said don't use a live cat when you're... Yeah. So now, question number 2, if we can go back and find it, was by RCC, I think. Yeah, here we go. So I'm in the market for a camping off-grid generator. What do you suggest? So if money's not an option, go with a Honda EU 2000. Those are the best camping inverter generators you're going to find. They're little red. They're the red Honda. They're great. They call them the suitcase generator because you can pick them up and carry them. They're probably still pretty heavy. They're not unbearable to lift. I had a beautiful one that somebody wanted more than mine. I did, and they walked away with it in my garage one night because I didn't lock my garage. So yeah, when you're looking for an off-grid generator, like a small camping one, an inverter one will be great because they tend to run your electronics more smoothly. So you're probably going to have, it depends on what you're taking, but you're going to have some sort of small electronics that you're going to want to charge. So you're going to want nice, safe power. So the inverter generators do that. They tend to have more insulation, so they tend to run quieter. And the Hondas are just drop dead reliable. Those things will start for years and run and run and run. So if that's what you're looking for, go with that. Those are great. Now, Furman has one. So if price is a bit of an option, take a step down and look at some of the other brands. So yeah, the only model number that I know off the top of my head is the Honda EU 2000, because that is the industry standard for small, compact, camper style generators. Just about any RV you see is going to have one of those strapped to the back. But like I said, they're expensive. You can buy 2 or 3 cheaper ones for the same amount of money. So Furman's really good. Westinghouse has gotten really good. Champion is pretty good. Look at any one of those when you're looking for a generator. Look at any one of those brands, and again, look for it's going to look like a suitcase. They're all built the same. They're all kind of a little less than a foot wide and probably 2 feet long. And yeah, so the EU 2000, that's the main one. And then all the other brands have knockoffs of those. I want to say that Furman has a dual fuel generator that's like that, but I'm not sure. So we'll leave that alone. But so if money is an issue for any of us, right? Skip the Honda and go with some of the next step down brands. So like I said, Furman, Westinghouse, Champion, those are some of the ones there. And I'm probably forgetting a couple others, but those are not your generic ones. And then, you know what? I'm not going to lie. So I live in Canada. I don't have access to your Harbor Freight that you guys do, but I've had a lot of friends speak verily, oh boy, verily do I speak unto you. I've had a lot of friends speak very highly of the Predator generators from Harbor Freight. So if you're on a shoestring budget, they're the best place to check. So check out their inverter generator as well. But any of those, look for a compact inverter generator that's shaped like a suitcase with a handle on top. And that's going to be what you need. It's going to be the most compact, the most mobile, the quietest, and the cleanest power for the most bang for your buck. Yeah, Chris says champions are so loud. Yeah, they are. I had a champion that I sold not too long ago, but again, price, performance, you're going to sacrifice one of them. So, Champion isn't the best brand on the market, but they're a lot better than some of those imported Chinese models that you're going to see on the shelf at Walmart. What else we got here? Jaggy says the day we stop learning is the day we go into a box and put 6 feet under, get them to pack some cats in the box just in case you become a zombie and get hungry. Oh, dear God. Yeah. Oh, boy. Yeah, Martinson family had a good one there. So Chris says the first time you do a task, it will and should take some time. It's never a race. My friend, that is great advice. And I always forget about that because the first time you do something is going to take you 4 times as long. And that's okay. And then you're going to get a little more efficient and a little more efficient. And you're going to learn as you go along. And it's going to be great. And here's the other thing. Learning something new and learning new skills get addictive. So if you're nervous, I don't know how old you are necessarily, and that really doesn't matter. But I remember when I was, in my early 20s, I didn't want to try anything. And then I was like, well, I'm poor. I can't afford to hire anybody to do it. So I'm going to try. And so I started fixing up old, weed whippers and lawnmowers. And I got a little bit of success under my belt. And you know what I did? I got a little cocky. I got a little excited and a little confident. And I'll promise you this. Once you learn how to hang a picture, and then, I don't know, maybe you're going to paint a room, or the first time you patch a little bit of drywall, all of a sudden you're going to be like, shit, why was I so nervous about this? I can do this. And then you're going to get a little comfortable, and you're going to be like, you know what? I'm okay with stretching a little bit, and I'm going to learn, and I'm going to get better at it, and I'm going to keep going. And then all of a sudden you'll hit a point where you're like, yeah, I can do this. And I know I can. And you will too, I promise. That's the best part about learning. And I tell you this because there's still days that I doubt myself and my abilities, and that's okay. And then Becky reminds me, Tim, honey, you've done so many things and you can do way more than you think you can. So just remember that. You might be nervous about it, but people have done that kind of shit all the time. And then Jason Davis says, always be outside your comfort zone when learning. That is so important. But don't be too far, right? Because what I find is if I've tried to go, I like to joke and say, go big or go home. And yes, that is important. But when it comes to learning new things, don't go balls to the wall crazy. Take your time. And like I said, learn one thing and then learn something that adds to that skill, and then add to that skill and add to that skill, so that you're going just a little bit out. Like I said, don't try to swap out an engine if you've never learned how to rotate your tires on your vehicle, right? That's really where it's at. Do we have, okay. Oh yes, here we go. This is nice to hear. So Renovation and Repair said, Harbor Freight is the best bang for your buck. I have the 3500 inverter generator for 5 years. It's super quiet and just works. So I'm going to the States twice this year, going to Nashville in April and North Carolina in September. And I won't be able to bring any generators back because I'm flying both times. But I am sure as shit going to go to Harbor Freight, and I'll probably do a video, a Canadian's first thoughts on Harbor Freight, because you guys have bragged them up to me for years. And boy, all I can tell you is it better live up to the hype, because I'm kind of excited. John says, I opened up a can of cats. Yeah, I really did. Jason says, also take the kids with you as you do it. Maybe a lot slower, but so important. And I don't know if Charlotte's still in here. She's my biggest fan. She's one half of the dynamic duo of the Cook twins, and she is awesome. And I got to tell you, this has been a struggle for me for a lot of years, and she's heard me say that too. But I sometimes don't take the time to show them things that I should, and I'm trying harder to do that. Yep, she's here. So last weekend, Charlotte, what did we do? We baked bread, and it was so much fun. And it was her great-grandmother's recipe, who died in 1990. I was 9 years old. Charlotte was -21 at that time. So she never got to meet her, obviously. But I got lucky and I started scrounging around about 15 years ago, talking to all my aunts and uncles until I found one aunt who had saved her bread recipe. So then I saved that bread recipe. I learned how to bake bread using her recipe. And now a fourth generation, right? Is that right? Grandmother, father. Okay, third generation anyway. No, fourth. Yeah, she's Charlotte's great grandmother. Sorry. Anyway, so now simply by teaching her, I'm, well, a few things, but we're getting into long term dry goods storage. And I want Charlotte and all the kids really to know how to cook and eat off that stuff. But I also want her and hopefully Alice as well to know how to make bread, and not just how to make bread, but how to make her great grandmother cook's bread. And hopefully someday she's going to teach her kids how to do that too. And that is fucking exciting. That's all I got to say about that. RC 119, come to Chicago. I would love to. Renovate. Oh, wow. Renovation and repairs. Oh my God, that would be awesome. I think we'll talk. That is friggin' I would love that. He said, sorry, I'm all excited. And anybody on the audio would not have a clue what I'm talking about. But he said, I'm driving through Canada to Alaska in July. I'll bring you whatever you want from the States. Plenty of room for a Harbor Freight stop. We're going to talk. I will get you to bring me a generator. I got to. I just want to do reviews on the damn things, but I'd love, yeah, that'll be great. And we could meet up in real life. That would be awesome too. RC says we have a few Harbor Freights. Then we'll eat an Italian beef at Portillo's. I hope that is. So 4 or 5 years ago, Charlotte, if you're in here, you could tell me, we went to Chicago. We spent one day in Chicago. It happened to be the weekend of the big air show there. And we went up to the top of the Sears Tower because I have a thing for going up in the tallest buildings anywhere we go. And Charlotte and Alice were very tired, and it was like a 3-hour wait to get up there. We went up, we did the whole thing for about a half an hour. We were ready to leave. We're like, oh, let's go hop in the elevator and go down. And we went, and we thought the line was right there. It turned out that was the end of the line. We had to go all the way around the building and wait in line. It was like another hour wait to take the elevator down. And Charlotte just lost her collective shit. Started crying. She was so wore out. But we did have the single best deep dish pizza I have ever had in my entire life. Chicago is I wish I had more time there. It's a beautiful city. And you know what? We probably will at some point make it that way. And I'll definitely have a meetup. That would be great. Jaggy says, teach them the skills they need and not what the schools teach. And Tim, when you come into Scotland, well, at some point, Jaggy, we will get there because Charlotte said the pizza was not worth it. Oh, I'm sorry, sweetie. Excuse me. I promised Becky many, many years ago that I would take her to England at some point. That is her thing. So when we get to England, we will come to Scotland and we will meet up with you, Jaggy. It'll be awesome. I will love that. So does anyone else have any questions you want to throw out, or tips or tricks or anything like that? Because holy shit, this hour and a half flew by. We've had a lot on the go. Have you guys seen anything weird in the podcast feed? I had we had what did we call it? The after party yesterday. So after Unloose the Goose, which is another kind of joint podcast thing, a bunch of my buddies joined me on my live stream, and we sat and talked about nothing and everything for 2.5 hours. We shared some of the dankest memes we could find. We told jokes, and we just talked about everything, and it was great. I loved it. And so for right now, it's going to be shared in my regular podcast feed, but eventually it'll probably spring off into its own thing, I would think. So, all right, guys. See, I get addicted to this. I love chatting with you guys, and it's so much fun. I appreciate that. Jaggy wants to know how many cans of Pepsi Max in an hour and a half video. 2.5 tonight. I am, that would be it. I'm addicted to it. It's an awful thing, but yes. Jason says, love your hustle, Tim. Sorry I got here late. I got to tell you guys, I love it. Like, I love when people are like, oh, sorry, Tim, I can't make it, or I can't go, or I got to leave. Well, all I got to tell you is I appreciate every single minute you come in here and hang out with me for the live stream. And this is the internet. So everybody's got real lives. Like, I'm going to out Chris Dixon here right quick. He had to leave the live stream the other night. He apologized to me. That bastard went out and made $200 for an hour's worth of work. it was, that is what we do. That is why I'm here, is to inspire you to go out and make $200 for an hour's worth of work or whatever it happens to be. So do your thing. I'll be here. The recording will be here. Live your life. Get out there, do shit, make money, build a business, and build a legacy. That's what we do. And that's what you guys can do too. And I love it. Martinson family says, good show, old boy. Next time we should share some recipes for cat or other rare food. I would love that. You know what? You know what I love about my podcast is it's my podcast and we can talk about whatever the hell we want. I started talking about post-apocalyptic movies because other people liked it. And I'll be damned, Martinson family, I think that's what we'll do. Share some of the best recipes at one time or another. That'll be great. John says, just so you know, Tim, if I miss the live, I watch it later. I appreciate that. I do. There's nothing I enjoy more in content creation than having these live streams. So yeah, I think that's a good place to kind of wrap things up there, guys. So if you want, well, where do you find me this week? It's been a busy week. So if you want to find me, there's no shortage of content with me in it this week. It just kind of happened. Amy Dingman on A Farmer's Kind of Life had an interview with me about 3 weeks ago. She recorded, released that today. We talked about how luck doesn't exist and how you make your own luck and how you build a business and build a life and all of that. It was a great episode. Yesterday, I got interviewed by Ken Esch, a good buddy of mine, on the Constructive Liberty podcast. I believe that'll be coming out tomorrow. Again, we talked about entrepreneurship and how it leads to living a free life. It was so great. And Jaggy wants to know his recipes contain single malt. Is that okay to share? Only if you bring enough to share with everybody, my friend. And what else do we have? So Saturday evening, I'm going to try. Yeah. Chris Dixon says, just remember there's no beans in chili. Well, all I can tell you, Mr. Dixon, is in my house, there are beans in chili because I like beans in chili. I don't know what you call it, but whatever. Saturday night is going to be, so I'm sure, okay, there's going to be a Saturday episode. 99% chance it's going to be live. I just can't tell you if it's going to be morning or night. It's probably going to be night. And if it is night, what I'm thinking about doing this week is I'm going to do another post-apocalyptic movie review list. And then what we might try is we might do a live stream after party in Telegram where anybody who wants to do it, come and join the Telegram group and we will have a live kind of FaceTime chat. I really like that whole concept in Telegram of how it works. So we'll all get face to face and we can chat. It'll be fun. We can talk about nothing or anything. Might go a half hour, might go an hour and a half. I don't know. But when the show's over, we're going to jump over to Telegram and we're going to do a live kind of meet and greet or whatever. We'll see if anybody shows up, anybody wants to do it. It'll be a lot of fun. And then the highlight of this week, and I know I'm plugging a whole lot of shit here tonight, guys, but I know you want to hear about it. Sunday evening, I've got Nicole Sauce coming on, and it's going to be great. She's going to talk about, and if you don't know Nicole Sauce, well, you should. She's built an incredible community, an incredible content creation over at Living Free in Tennessee. So give her podcast a follow. She is the very first content creator who gave me a chance. Just over 2 years ago, I launched my content creation on her podcast, February of 2020. And she's a good friend. And I'm going to go down and I'm going to be speaking at her spring workshop in April. So she's coming on to talk about running events, building community with those events, and also making an income from those. So Jaggy, the link should be to Telegram in this. You know what? Hang on here, guys. I will bring this up and I will share it in the live chat right now because I like Telegram that much that I want you guys all to come and join. See if I can find it here while we're talking. Where'd you put it, Tim? How is it not? There we go. Okay. Sorry for everybody else on the audio that's hearing me. There it is, guys. T.me/Toolman Tim's workshop. Pretty easy to, there we go. It'll come across over on Facebook and on, there you go. Can you say, oh, it didn't show up on Facebook. I wonder if that live stream dropped. Can you say the word about pronounced a boot? Yeah, so there's no do to boot it. We're going to go out in a boot and have a good time. That's the Canadian. Yeah, I've gotten a little better at it, but can't do much about it. So, yeah. So that is Jaggy just joined the Telegram group. Welcome, my friend. So that's where you can find me this week. Nicole, it's going to be an awesome episode. She's always a great interview and interviewer. And then, of course, for all my friends listening on the Prepper Broadcast Network, because, and by the way, we've started streaming on a couple new platforms, or at least one. We're also on Facebook now. And of course, audio only on Prepper Broadcast Network. It's a great network. And if you want to know what's coming up tomorrow, it's my buddy Carl A.D. Brown. And his podcast is, I love listening to him. He's a great guy. He deals with Christianity, preparedness, and the news stories that not everyone else is talking about. His show is called The Strange Truth, and he is great. Love it. Anyway, so that's the end of what I'm doing this week. Guys, I got to say, this was quite possibly the best live stream we've ever had. I loved it. I love seeing all the new faces or names or, whatever we call it in here. Let's break a record for the next one. We'll top out at least 20 live people in here. The podcast is growing even steeper than 45 degrees. I am so excited. The growth is just blowing me away. We're going to reach the goals this year, and we are creating something great together. So thank you. Anyway, guys, that's it for me. Remember, from Chris Dixon, no beans and chili. Sorry. I probably talk too fast. It's the Prepper Broadcast Network. I will give you a link to them as well. So that's where a lot of my content is. I do my Thursday live stream on here. They are an incredible group that I am part of. So there is the link for you, Captioner, because my Canadian accent and I talk too quick and I mumble. So yes, anyway, thank you guys. And as always, stay happy, stay healthy, and have a great week.